All right, now reviewing the basics, part two. Now, order of operations, and I won't leave this a mystery. We're talking about BEDMAS here. And the reason we have an order of operations is so that we all get the same answer, or at least we can all agree that when we write a certain mathematical equation or expression, that we all agree what that expression actually means. So it's just a set of rules that mathematicians have come up with to say, okay, this is what this comes out to. So just as a motivating example, and I see these kind of things on the internet or on Facebook all the time when people talk about order of operations, and then they say, "Oh, which one of these is correct?" And there'll be something like this. But this is a really simple version of it. But I just want to establish that the reason why we need some rules here. Okay, so Tom and Sophia both doing the same math problem. They're both doing 8 minus 5 plus 2. And I actually am going to use this as a jumping off point to, like, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, well, I really know BEDMAS. I learned about BEDMAS in elementary school and I really know what I'm doing. Okay, that's fine. And I'm sure you do. But just tune in for this one example because it's one of the tiny little things that could trip you up in BEDMAS if you're not careful, even if you really know what you're doing. So what Tom did is he looked at this and he said 8 minus 5 plus 2. And he said, well, BEDMAS tells me that addition becomes before subtraction. So he added the 5 plus 2 that you see there. And you may see a couple of things wrong with Tom's thinking there. But anyways, he went 5 plus 2 and got 7. And then he went 8 minus 7 and got 1. And that may sort of seem right to you or to when people see that. Okay, so what Sophia did is she said 8 minus 5 plus 2. She first took 8 minus 5 and did 8 minus 5 and got 3 and added 2 and got 5. And which solution is correct? Well, Sophia's correct here. Sophia's done it the right way. And the common mistake that can get made with BEDMAS is when you think that addition comes before subtraction, and that's not actually true. That's not what BEDMAS really says. And I'll get to why that is in just a second, because if you're bewildered by that, if you're like, oh, wait a minute, BEDMAS says addition and subtraction, then that's the little thing we got to talk about. Even if you feel like you're really good at BEDMAS, I just got to show you one little thing, and then you'll go, oh, okay, I get that now. So Tom is wrong here. And now, technically, BEDMAS is the beginning of wisdom, not the end of wisdom. So I just want to go back a little bit and just say, if you're looking at that and said, oh, if Tom had just thought of this, subtract 5 as negative 5 and added 2, he would have got negative 3, and then he would have got the right answer. Okay, that's fine. We'll talk about more about stuff like moves like that in chapter 2 and 3. There are times when we have some options to BEDMAS, and we can do things in a different order if we so choose, and if we know what we're doing. But let's just leave it as is for now and say we're going to stick to the rules of BEDMAS, at least for one more chapter, okay? So Tom is wrong in the order that he did things here. And let's talk about how come that is. Oh yeah, there it is. Sophia did it right. She got 5. And actually, if you got your calculator there, I want to talk about calculators in a minute. But if you got your calculator there, you can type in 8 minus 5 plus 2, and your calculator will verify that Sophia is right there. So let's go back to BEDMAS for a second. To remember order of operations, we use something called BEDMAS. And it's a very cute acronym, but again, it has some slight limitations. But let me just get to that in just a second. So what mathematicians decided is that when we see brackets, we will do what's inside the brackets first. That's an important piece there. When we see brackets, it doesn't mean we do them first. We do what's inside the brackets first. Sometimes I actually call this IBEDMAS because I want to remind students that it's actually inside the brackets you do first. Let me see, the pen in here is a little bit troublesome, but sometimes I do a little IBEDMAS. I put an I in front of there because I really want to remind students, sort of like iPhone or iPad. It's IBEDMAS. Now, it reminds you that when we say brackets, we mean do anything you can that's inside the brackets. Okay? So I'll turn that off. Okay. Then we do exponents. Then we do division and multiplication from left to right. See, division and multiplication. See, to make BEDMAS sound right, we put division in front of multiplication, just to make it sound catchy as a good memory tool. But we never meant to say that division becomes before multiplication, actually. Division and multiplication are on the same level, and we just do them left to right. So maybe that's the big moment for BEDMAS in this whole video for you. If you really knew BEDMAS before you came in, maybe the big moment for you is realizing that division and multiplication, not realizing, maybe finding out that division and multiplication, division doesn't come before multiplication. Division and multiplication are on the same level. You just go left to right. So if you get to a question where all you're left with is division and multiplication, you just go left to right. You don't worry about doing division before multiplication. And the same is true for addition and subtraction. Addition doesn't come before subtraction necessarily. Once you're down to just addition and subtraction, then you just go from left to right. Now, I encourage you to print this page out when you're doing the BEDMAS homework, or to make your own copy of it to remind yourself. And I really like, again, you'll hear me say it, iBEDMAS, because I really like that reminder of doing inside the brackets first. So what would be a review for you from elementary school BEDMAS, and maybe just a couple little notes there about little things that can go wrong with BEDMAS if you're not careful. Okay, so a quick example. Evaluate the following expression. Bracket 4 times 2 minus 2 squared, bracket plus 3 times 1 plus 2 times 3. Let's talk about that for a second. I said times automatically there, and there's just a 3 in front of the bracket here, and that's something that might not have been covered in grade 8 very much, is to say, okay, when we have a number in front of a bracket like that, what we mean is multiply. And there's a reason for that, is this, as we go into algebra in later chapters, this symbol here, this multiply symbol, really looks like an X. Mathematicians, we really try to get rid of that symbol and not use that symbol very much. And so we find shortcuts and short forms of writing things. And one of the short forms is when we want to multiply things together, we just write them beside each other like that. When they're written beside each other like that, we mean multiply. So let's go through the thinking with iBEDMAS. And iBEDMAS, see, iBEDMAS, you won't see that in any book. That's a creation by me to help, grade 9 students think this through. So don't let that be, don't go looking for that iBEDMAS thing. That's just me trying to help you. So inside brackets first is what you're going to go after. So both of these brackets have insides to them. And let me just underline that. I'll switch over to my little pen here, and maybe I'll even come up with a nicer color here. Maybe like a yellow here. Okay, so there. That right there is some inside brackets, and that right there is some inside brackets. So that's what we're going to go after first, is those inside brackets. Now, once you decide you're going inside brackets, then you go back to iBEDMAS again. And see, I'm saying it every time, iBEDMAS, so I'm so used to teaching it to grade 9s. Then you go back to iBEDMAS again, and you go, okay, well, listen, let's look inside here and go, what order do I do these things in? And so then you go, okay, is there brackets inside brackets? Well, there could be, actually. You could get brackets inside brackets. Get ready for that. Okay, but no, there's no brackets inside brackets. Then is there exponents in here? And yeah, there is an exponent in this bracket. So in this bracket, I'm going to do the exponent first in that left-hand bracket. In the right-hand bracket, I'm going to do the multiplying first, because that's the first operation I see in there. I get the M in BEDMAS first. So what you see in the next line here is I did 2 squared. I did 2 to the exponent 2 from the previous lesson. And over here I did 2 times 3 is 6. And I go right back to BEDMAS again. Okay, in this first bracket, what do I do first? Multiplication becomes before addition, so I'm going to do that multiplication. Inside this bracket, there's not much to talk about. There's only one operation left, so I'm going to add those two things together. So I went 4 times 2 is 8, and over in this bracket, I went 1 plus 6 is 7. And so now I've still got more inside bracket. I'm still on I of the iBEDMAS over here in the left-hand bracket. I'm still working inside the brackets. And so 8 minus 4, that's 4. And I can do this multiplication over here, 3 times 7, because multiplication becomes 4 addition. And then I'm left with addition here. 4 plus 21 equals 25. Now, I do want to talk about calculators and writing these answers up in grade 9. In grade 9, we really want to see these steps. We really want to see you know how to do these steps, because it's going to be important later when we're doing algebra that you really understand the steps. Once these numbers aren't numbers anymore and they're x's and y's and x squareds and some of the stuff that's coming later, you really have to know how to do the steps, and that's why we're so kind of strict about showing steps. Well, okay, we're not completely strict. You miss one little step, we're not going to get all upset. But we really want you to show these steps, even though we know your calculator can do all of this. And let me show you that. Let me bring a calculator up on the screen here. And listen, if you've got a calculator that doesn't do what mine does, you might consider ordering one or getting one, because it really does help you all through high school to have a calculator that can handle these questions the way I can handle them here. So the way I'm going to handle it here is I'm going to just type this in. I've got brackets on my calculator, so I can actually write a bracket and see a bracket. That's, you really want a calculator where you can see the bracket there, and then I can type in 4 times 2 minus 2. And this calculator happens to have a squared button, so I can put a squared up there and then close the bracket. And your calculator might not have all the exact same numbers as me and exact same buttons as me, but we really want it that you can really see it here. You see how I can see everything I'm typing in here. And then plus 3, open the bracket, 1 plus 2 times 3, and then close the bracket there. And when I press equals, I get the 25 as I hoped I would. So that's really helps you on quizzes and tests to at least know you got the right answer. But what we really want to see is the tests. I see this argument all the time about math and should kids have calculators in their hands when they're doing math problems? And the answer is a big, big yes. We should definitely have calculators in our hands to check our answer, but we also need to know how to do the questions by hand, as you'll find out in later algebraic chapters. So make sure you got a calculator that can do these things. Don't panic about it if you don't have one. Just get one as soon as you can, because it's really going to help you when you're doing these homework. What is the homework? Page 492. Just number 1 in the A2 section. A2 is just the title at the top of the page. When you go to page 492, there'll be 2 sections there. There'll be A1 and A2, but do number 1 in the A2 section and make sure to check those answers. So important to check your answers. It's like a basketball player. You throw the ball towards the net. You got to check to see if it went in, or what's the point of practicing? And the exact same thing is true in math. You got to check every single answer. Look in the back of the book. Make sure you got it right. Or, better yet, type it in your calculator and make sure you got it right, because that calculator is there to help you on quizzes and tests to check your answers. Okay? That homework shouldn't take you long. Some good practice for BEDMAS, and some questions that are even a little more challenging than this one here to really make you think. Okay? Wonderful. Have a good time with that, and then come back and see for the next video, which is reviewing the basics, part 3. Great.